The village of Mbarara lay cradled between rolling emerald hills and the great Odu River, its waters glistening under the golden African sun. Ancient baobab trees stood tall like silent guardians, their massive trunks twisted with age, whispering secrets only the wind could hear. The air was thick with the scent of wildflowers and damp earth, carried by the gentle breeze that rustled through fields of tall grass. Birds of every color darted through the sky, their songs blending harmoniously with the distant laughter of children playing in the village square. Mbarara was a land of tradition, where time flowed like the river, steady, unbroken, untouched by the outside world. The people lived in harmony, bound together by customs passed down through generations. Thatched roof huts formed a circle around the village square, where elders sat on carved wooden stools beneath the shade of acacia trees, sharing stories of the ancestors. Women pounded yam in stone mortars, their rhythmic movements like a song of labor and love, while the men, strong and proud, returned from the forests with the day's hunt, their bodies glistening with sweat and triumph. At the heart of this village lived Adamma. She was the kind of beauty that could stop a man in his tracks. Her skin, the rich brown of the earth after fresh rain, glowed under the sun. Her eyes, deep and soulful, held the warmth of a mother's embrace and the mystery of the night sky. But it was not her beauty alone that made her special, it was her spirit. Adamma was kind, generous, and full of life. She carried joy wherever she went, like the morning breeze that brought relief after a hot night. She was the first to wake in the village, carrying pots to the river to fetch water for the elders. She braided the hair of the little girls, told stories to restless children, and helped the weavers dye their fabrics in the deepest indigos and brightest reds. If an old man struggled with his load, Adamma was there to carry it. If a mother had too many mouths to feed, Adamma would share her own portion. Her laughter was a melody that could chase away sorrow, and her presence alone was enough to bring peace to any troubled heart. Many men had asked for her hand, some from distant lands, offering wealth and power. But Adamma had eyes for only one, Obinna, the bravest hunter in Mbarara. Obinna was a man of strength, not just in body but in heart. He could track an antelope through the densest forest, move like a shadow through the trees, and strike with the precision of a leopard. Yet, for all his skill, he was a man of deep love and unwavering loyalty. He had loved Adamma since they were children, when they raced barefoot through the fields, when they sat beneath the old baobab tree, whispering dreams of the future. It was no surprise when Obinna came to Adamma's parents with a proposal. He stood before them, tall and proud, his voice steady with the certainty of a man who knew his heart. Her parents, seeing the fire in his eyes and the love in their daughters, gave their blessing. The village erupted in celebration, for a love as pure as theirs was rare, a love that seemed destined by the gods themselves. The days leading to the wedding were filled with joy and excitement. Women wove intricate patterns into Adamma's bridal garments, beads of coral and gold glistening in the sunlight. The men brewed palm wine, preparing for the great feast. Drummers practiced their beats, ensuring that when the night came, their rhythm would carry the couple into their new life. The air smelled of roasting meat, sizzling plantains, and freshly pounded fufu. But amid the joy, in the quietest corners of the village, not everyone celebrated. An old woman stood in the shadows, her form bent with age, her face lined with the weight of a past no one spoke of. She watched Adamma from afar, her lips moving in silent whispers. Her eyes, clouded with years, held a sorrow too deep to name. No one noticed her presence. No one heard her whispered warning as she stared into the wind, her voice barely audible. She must not marry. The wedding day arrived with the first golden rays of the sun, casting a warm glow over the village of Mbarara. The entire community had gathered in the square, dressed in their finest attire, beads shimmering in their hair, and intricate patterns painted onto their skin with red and white clay. The air vibrated with the rhythmic pounding of drums, the sweet melodies of flutes, and the voices of women ululating in celebration. Smoke from roasting meats spiraled into the sky, mingling with the scent of burning incense and freshly cut flowers. Adamma, adorned in a gown woven from the softest fabric, stepped forward, every movement graceful as if the wind carried her. Her hair was braided and crowned with golden beads that clinked gently as she moved. Around her neck, heavy coral necklaces rested against her collarbone, a symbol of fertility and prosperity. The village women had painted delicate patterns on her arms and legs, ancient symbols meant to bless her union and ward off evil spirits. But none of these adornments compared to the glow of happiness that radiated from within her. Obinna stood waiting, his chest broad and proud, dressed in the deep red robes of a warrior, his forehead adorned with a single white streak of paint, a mark of his ancestors' blessings. When their eyes met, the world around them faded, and for a moment, they were just two souls bound together by love, untouched by time, untouched by fate. The elders stepped forward, each offering words of wisdom, prayers for a fruitful marriage, and blessings that echoed through the crowd. One elder, with a voice hoarse from age, raised his hands and called upon the spirits of the land, asking them to watch over the couple. Palm wine was poured as an offering, and the villagers cheered as the couple took their first sip, sealing their bond in the eyes of both their people and the gods. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a crimson hue over the sky, the true celebrations began. The night was filled with dancing, laughter, and the sound of feet stomping against the packed earth. Children ran between the adults, their giggles mixing with the music, while elders clapped in time with the rhythm. Women swung their hips in perfect synchrony, and men leaped into the air, their movements fierce and wild, honoring their ancestors through dance. Obinna and Adamma danced too, their hands intertwined, moving in perfect harmony. They were the heartbeat of the celebration, the reason for the joy that filled the night air. They laughed, whispered words only they could hear, and held each other close, oblivious to everything else. It was a night of love, a night of promises, a night that should have marked the beginning of a lifetime together. But fate had other plans. As the fires burned low and the celebrations began to quiet, Adama was led to her new home, as was the custom. The women accompanied her, singing soft songs as they walked through the village, guiding her to the threshold of the hut she would now share with Obinna. They left her there, laughing and teasing as they departed, knowing that soon, Obinna would follow. Inside, the room was warm, filled with the soft glow of flickering lamps. The marriage bed was decorated with freshly cut flowers, and the air carried the faint scent of scented oils. Adama sat, waiting, her heart full, her thoughts drifting to the life ahead of her. But then, the air shifted. A strange cold crept into the room, curling around her like unseen fingers. The flames in the lamps flickered wildly before going out all at once, plunging the room into darkness. The wind howled outside, rattling the walls, and for a moment, she thought she heard a whisper, low, sorrowful, and ancient. Then, silence. Outside, Obinna was still speaking with the elders, laughing as they clapped him on the back, offering him final words of advice. When he finally stepped away and made his way toward his new home, his heart was light, his steps eager. But the moment he reached the door, an unease settled over him. The air was too still, too heavy. He pushed against the wooden door, but it did not budge. It was locked from the inside. "Adama," he called softly, then louder. "Adama, open the door." No answer. A deep, cold dread crept into his bones. He stepped back, then slammed his shoulder against the door. It groaned but did not break. He hit it again, harder this time, until the wood splintered and the door burst open. The room was empty. The flowers on the bed lay undisturbed, the lamps still cold and dark. But on the floor, scattered near the doorway, were her bridal ornaments, her beaded necklace, the golden anklet she had worn, and a single coral earring. A sharp gust of wind rushed through the room, carrying with it the unmistakable scent of the river, damp and ancient. It filled Obinna's lungs, chilling him from the inside out. He stumbled back, his heart pounding. Then he ran. He ran into the night, shouting her name, his voice breaking as it echoed through the sleeping village. The alarm spread quickly. Doors swung open, villagers pouring out, their faces filled with confusion and fear. The elders gathered, torches held high, their flickering flames casting eerie shadows against the huts. The drummers, who had only moments ago played for joy, now pounded their drums in urgency, their beats summoning every man, woman, and child. But no matter how many voices called her name, no matter how many torches lit the paths between the trees, Adama was gone. Not a single footprint marked the ground. No sign of struggle. No trace of where she had gone. It was as if she had simply vanished. The village of Marara had never known such fear. The night that had been filled with music and laughter had turned to silence, broken only by the desperate cries of Obinna as he searched for Adama. The torches flickered in the darkness, casting eerie shadows on the huts as villagers gathered in the square, whispering among themselves. Mothers clutched their children, elders exchanged uneasy glances, and the hunters, strong and fearless, looked shaken. Adama was gone. Vanished without a trace, as if the earth had swallowed her whole. The village elders sat in a tight circle near the sacred baobab tree, their faces grave, their voices hushed. They spoke in tones heavy with knowledge they had long buried. Something about this night had awakened an old fear, something they had not dared to speak of in years. Obinna, breathless and frantic, pushed through the crowd and faced them. His fists were clenched, his body trembling with emotion. "Where is she?" he demanded. "She cannot have disappeared. Someone must have taken her. Tell me where she is." The elders did not meet his eyes. Finally, the oldest among them, Baba Odiu, cleared his throat. His face, wrinkled with age and wisdom, was grim. "There are things," he said slowly, "that should never be disturbed. There are truths buried beneath the river that should never be spoken." "I don't care for riddles, Baba," Obinna snapped. His voice was raw, his heart pounding against his ribs. "Tell me what you know. Tell me where my wife is." A deep sigh passed through the circle of elders. And then, from the edge of the gathering, a voice, dry and brittle as old leaves, broke the silence. "She is gone, because of the curse." All heads turned toward the speaker. It was Neka, the old woman who had watched from the shadows during the wedding. The villagers shrank back, some making gestures to ward off evil. Neka had lived on the outskirts of Mbaara for as long as anyone could remember, her presence tolerated but never welcomed. She spoke little, always watching, always whispering to herself. Some called her a madwoman. Others feared she was something worse. Obinna turned to her, his breath sharp. "What curse?" Neka stepped forward, her frail body moving with a weight that spoke of burdens carried for far too long. Her milky eyes locked onto Obinna's, unblinking. "The curse of the river spirit," she said, her voice low but steady. "The curse placed upon Adama's bloodline, generations ago." A hush fell over the villagers. Even the wind seemed to stop to listen. Baba Odiu closed his eyes, nodding as if he had known this truth but had hoped to never speak it aloud. "Tell him, Neka," he murmured. "Tell them all." The old woman inhaled deeply, then began. "Many years ago, before any of us were born, the people of Mbarara lived in even greater harmony with the spirits of the land. The river, the trees, the winds, all had guardians, beings beyond our world who watched over us, who gave and took as they pleased. And among them was one spirit more powerful than any other, the spirit of the Odiu River. She was said to be beautiful beyond words, her voice like the songs of the waves, her presence felt in the currents that fed our land." The villagers listened, their breaths shallow. They had heard whispers of such things before, but never in such detail. Neka's voice wavered slightly, but she pressed on. "A man, an ancestor of Adama's, betrayed her." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Obinna's jaw tightened. "This ancestor," Neka continued, "was a man of great ambition. He was chosen by the river spirit to be her husband, to live beside her in the waters forever, bound by a sacred vow. But he loved another, a mortal woman. And on the night he was to join the spirit, he ran from her, choosing his human lover instead." The villagers gasped. "The river spirit's rage was terrible," Neka said, her voice thick with old sorrow. "She swelled the waters, drowning entire fields, swallowing homes. She cursed him and all his descendants, proclaiming that no daughter of his bloodline would ever marry for love. For if she did, she would be taken." A cold wind swept through the village, rustling the trees, as if the spirits themselves whispered in agreement. Obinna's breathing was ragged. "You're saying Adama," was taken by the river spirit? Neka nodded solemnly. Just as the prophecy foretold. No, Obinna shook his head violently. No, I don't believe in such things. This is just an old story. A myth. His voice rose, desperate. She was here. I held her. She was real, she was mine. She cannot be gone because of something that happened generations ago. Neka's eyes darkened. Believe what you will, hunter. But she is gone. And if you do not heed this warning, you too will be lost. Obinna's heart pounded like the drums of the wedding celebration that now felt like a lifetime ago. The weight of the words pressed on his chest, suffocating him. He turned, looking at the villagers, at the elders, at the empty space where Adama should have been. No, he whispered. He would not accept this. His love was not a curse. His love was not a mistake. I will find her. His voice, though quiet, was filled with unwavering determination. I will bring her back. A ripple of shock spread through the villagers. Obinna, Baba Odiu began, but the hunter was already stepping away from the gathering. His hands clenched into fists, his jaw set with resolve. Neka shook her head. Foolish boy, she muttered under her breath. You do not fight spirits. You do not challenge fate. But Obinna did not care for fate. He did not care for warnings or ancient prophecies. He only cared about one thing. Adama. Obinna left the village before the first light of dawn. The air was heavy with mist, the world around him eerily silent. The weight of Neka's words pressed against his chest, but he refused to surrender to fear. If Adama was truly trapped beyond the river's veil, then he would find her, even if it meant crossing into the spirit world itself. His first destination was the hut of the diviner, a man known as Ease the Seer. Few in the village spoke his name aloud, for he was said to walk the line between the living and the dead. His home sat on the very edge of Mbaara, where the forest thickened and the air always carried the scent of burning herbs. Obinna stepped inside, his heart beat steady but his mind restless. The interior was dimly lit, filled with the sharp aroma of crushed leaves and ancient oils. Skulls of animals lined the walls, their hollow eyes staring, as if they, too, held secrets. Ease sat cross-legged in the center of the room, his body draped in robes woven with symbols that shimmered under the weak light. His face was aged yet unreadable, his white eyes seeing things beyond mortal sight. As Obinna entered, the diviner did not look up. Instead, he stirred the dark liquid inside a clay bowl before him, watching the surface ripple with unseen forces. You seek her, Ease murmured, his voice distant, as though he spoke from another world. Obinna's fists clenched. Tell me where she is. The diviner exhaled, shaking his head. She is not here. Not in this world. He dipped his fingers into the bowl and flicked drops of liquid onto the ground. At once, the air inside the hut shifted, the walls seeming to stretch and pulse like a living thing. A low hum filled the space, not from Ease, but from something beyond. The river did not take her, the seer continued. Not in the way you think. She has crossed the veil, pulled into the realm of spirits. The curse binds her there. Obinna swallowed hard, his pulse a steady drumbeat in his ears. Then tell me how to reach her. Ease's expression darkened. There is only one who knows the path. The oracle of the sacred forest. A shiver passed through Obinna at the name. The oracle was no mere spirit, it was an ancient force, neither good nor evil, but something beyond the understanding of men. Few had ever dared seek it, and fewer still had returned. The oracle will demand a sacrifice, Ease warned. To ask a question of it is to offer a piece of yourself. Obinna's jaw tightened. Then I will give what is needed. The diviner studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Go quickly. But beware, hunter. The road to the oracle is not made for mortals. Obinna entered the sacred forest as the sun dipped below the horizon, its last light casting long shadows through the dense trees. The deeper he went, the more unnatural the air became. The wind carried whispers that were not his own, the trees twisted into shapes that resembled reaching hands, and the darkness felt alive, moving like a creature that watched him with unseen eyes. He pressed forward, gripping his spear tightly. He was no stranger to danger. He had hunted beasts that could tear a man apart, but this was something else. Then the first illusion came. A rustling in the trees. A voice. Obinna. He froze. It was Adama's voice. He spun around, eyes scanning the darkness. And then he saw her, standing just beyond the trees, her form illuminated by the glow of fireflies. She was dressed in her wedding attire, her beads shimmering, her lips curved into a soft smile. "Obinna, my love," she whispered. "Come to me." His breath caught in his throat. His feet moved instinctively, his heart screaming for her. But some instinct buried deep within him, made him hesitate. And then, he noticed. Her feet. They did not touch the ground. The realization hit him like a spear to the chest. "This is not real," he growled, tightening his grip on his spear. At once, the illusion shattered. The beautiful Adama melted away, replaced by a monstrous shadow, its limbs too long, its eyes glowing like embers. It let out a shriek of rage before dissolving into the darkness. Obinna exhaled shakily, pushing forward. The spirits of the forest would not break him. For what felt like hours, he fought his way through, dodging tricksters' spirits that whispered lies, evading beasts with glowing red eyes, and resisting illusions of home, warmth, and comfort that tried to lull him into surrender. He would not stop. Not until he reached the oracle. At last, the trees gave way to a clearing. In the center stood a great stone, ancient and covered in carvings that pulsed with golden light. And then, it appeared. The oracle. It did not have a true form. It shifted like the wind, a shape that was constantly becoming and unbecoming. Its voice was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. "You have come," it said. Obinna steadied himself. "I seek my bride. I seek Adama." The oracle hummed, as if amused. "And what will you give in return?" Obinna did not hesitate. "Anything." The oracle's presence grew heavier, the very air thickening. "Even your soul?" A cold dread seeped into his bones. "She is in the grasp of Omu, the river goddess," the oracle continued. "She who was betrayed. She who cursed Adama's bloodline. She will not release her willingly." Obinna's fingers dug into his palms. "Then tell me how to free her." The oracle shifted, its golden patterns twisting into something darker. "Omu does not bargain with mortals. To take back what she has claimed, you must offer something greater than love." The weight of the words sank into Obinna's chest. He had been prepared to fight, to bleed, to suffer. But this. "My soul," he whispered. The oracle's form rippled in approval. "Yes. Your soul for hers. Your life in place of hers." Silence filled the clearing. Obinna's mind raced. If he did this, Adama would live. She would return to Marara, free of the curse. But he would be lost. He closed his eyes. He had sworn to love her beyond all things. And love meant sacrifice. Obinna inhaled deeply, then met the oracle's gaze. "I accept." The river of no return stretched endlessly before Obinna, its surface unnaturally still, as though time itself had frozen within its waters. The river was unlike anything in the moral world, its depths shimmered with strange lights, shifting between colors that did not belong to the earth. And there, standing in the mist, was Adama. She was as beautiful as he remembered, yet there was something unearthly about her now. Her wedding beads still adorned her neck, but they no longer shone in the moonlight. Her eyes, once filled with warmth and laughter, now held a sorrow so deep it made Obinna's chest tighten. She was trapped. She stood between two worlds, unable to move, her bare feet hovering just above the water's edge. She saw him and gasped, her hands reaching out instinctively, but she did not step forward. She could not. "Obinna," her voice trembled, thick with longing and fear. You shouldn't have come. His throat burned, his heart pounding against his ribs. How could I not? Before she could answer, the waters rippled, and the air grew heavy. A shape began to rise from the depths, forming slowly, deliberately. Olmu. The river goddess. She was not human, nor was she entirely spirit. Her form shifted like water itself, one moment a towering woman with dark, gleaming skin, the next a being made entirely of mist and flowing currents. Her hair was the river, her eyes deep whirlpools of endless sorrow and fury. She stared at Obinna, and the weight of centuries pressed down on him. You dare to come here, she said, her voice both a whisper and a roar. The river churned beneath her, responding to her emotions. You dare to defy the will of the gods. Obinna held his ground. I have come for my wife. Olmu laughed, a sound that echoed through the air like rolling thunder. Wife, she mused. She does not belong to you, mortal. She belongs to me now. Obinna's hands clenched into fists. Take me instead. Adamma gasped. No. The goddess tilted her head, amused. So quick to offer yourself. So quick to give away what little life you have left. Do you even understand what you are saying? Obinna did not hesitate. I do. Let her go. I will take her place. Olmu's expression darkened. You think love is enough to undo what has been set in stone? You think your sacrifice will erase the sins of the past? Obinna swallowed hard. It is all I have to offer. Olmu was silent for a long moment. Then, she raised her hand, and the water swirled violently. The mist thickened, twisting into memories, images from the past. Obinna saw flashes of the ancestor who had betrayed the goddess. He saw the broken vow, the rage that followed, the curse that had doomed Adamma's bloodline. Then, the vision shifted, to him and Adamma. Their childhood laughter. The first time their hands brushed. The moment he had vowed to make her his wife. The goddess sighed, her expression unreadable. Very well, she said at last. I will give you a choice. The river stilled. If you leave now, Olmu said, you will forget her. You will walk away, return to the world of the living, and never remember that she existed. She will remain here, in my realm, forever. Obinna's heart clenched. Or, Olmu's voice turned softer, almost cruelly gentle. You may take her place. She will return to the world of the living, free from the curse, but you will remain here. Forever. Adamma sobbed. No. Please, no. Obinna turned to her. His Adamma. His love. Her tears shimmered like tiny stars, her body trembling. I cannot lose you, she whispered. Not like this. Obinna reached out, brushing his fingers against her cheek. She was warm. Real. I swore to love you always, he murmured. Beyond life, beyond death. She shook her head, gripping his hands. Then let's stay together. We'll find another way. But there was no other way. He could see it in Olmu's eyes. The goddess would not bargain further. Obinna smiled sadly. You must live, Adamma. She sobbed, shaking her head, but he had already made his choice. Turning to Olmu, he spoke with unwavering certainty. Take me. The goddess nodded. The moment the words left his lips, the river responded. A great wave surged forward, curling around Obinna, pulling him into its cold embrace. Adamma screamed, fighting to hold on to him, but she was already being pushed back toward the moral world. Obinna felt the water consume him. He did not struggle. Through the rushing currents, he saw Adamma's form fading, her cries growing distant. Then, darkness. The village of Marara awoke to the sound of a woman's scream. Adamma sat up suddenly, gasping for air, her body drenched in sweat. Around her, familiar faces surrounded her, her mother, the village elders, the children who had danced at her wedding. She was home. But Obinna. She turned, her heart hammering, searching the room. Where is he? She whispered. No one answered. Tears spilled down her cheeks as the truth set in. He was gone. At the river's edge, where the mist never lifted, where the water never stilled, a lone figure stood in the shallows, his form half shadow, half water. Obinna. His reflection rippled, distorted, as he gazed across the river, though he knew he would never cross it again. He had made his choice. And love meant sacrifice. Adama was never the same after that night. Days turned into weeks, yet the pain did not fade. Every morning, she woke up hoping it had all been a terrible dream, but the emptiness beside her told her otherwise. She wandered through the village like a ghost, barely eating, barely speaking. At night, she sat by the river, her voice hoarse from calling his name. The people of Mbaara mourned with her. They spoke of Obinna in hushed voices, honoring his bravery, his love, his sacrifice. Some said he had become a spirit watching over them. Others whispered that he was gone forever, lost to the depths of the river of no return. But Adama refused to believe that. Every evening, she returned to the water's edge, waiting, hoping. The river remained still, offering no answer. But she waited anyway, because love did not fade with time. One night, as the moon hung heavy in the sky, something changed. The river glowed. A golden light shimmered beneath the water, rippling outward like a heartbeat. The villagers, who had grown accustomed to Adama's silent vigils, gathered around, their breath held in awe. The elders exchanged nervous glances, sensing something sacred was about to unfold. Then, from the mist, a figure emerged. A child. He stepped forward, barefoot, dripping with river water. His small frame trembled slightly in the cold night air, but his gaze was steady. Deep, dark eyes, familiar eyes. Obinna's eyes. Gasps filled the air. The elders fell to their knees. Adama could not move. Her heart pounded painfully in her chest as the boy approached, his tiny hands reaching for her. "Mama?" His voice was soft, uncertain. Tears welled in her eyes. "Obinna." The boy tilted his head, as if searching for something in her face. Then he smiled, a small, knowing smile. It was a smile she had seen 1,000 times before. The realization struck her like lightning. Omu had given him back. Not as a man. Not as the hunter she had loved. But as a child, a soul reborn, given another chance at life. A second chance. Adama fell to her knees, sobbing as she pulled the child into her arms. He smelled of river water and something else, something ancient, something divine. He held on to her tightly, burying his face in her shoulder as though he, too, knew that he had come home. The elders bowed their heads. The curse, passed down for generations, had been undone. Love had conquered what was once thought unbreakable. And so, Adama raised the boy. She told him stories, of a great hunter who had loved so fiercely that even the gods took pity on him. Of a love that defied death itself. Of a man named Obinna, whose heart was too strong to be forgotten. And though the boy did not yet understand, he listened. Because some stories are not just meant to be told. Some stories are meant to be lived again.